You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts, but there's only one where the horns are always down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Another episode of the Horns Down Podcast. Your host, Kchris with a K here. You see who I got with me, you know what I'm saying? Like Webby would always say, I got my people with me, you know what I'm saying? I got Jay, I got Jason. Let's go down the line. You guys tell them about the awesome content that you guys have been dropping. Tell them about your channels, tell them where they can find you. Obviously, it's a cult following, so everybody should know. But if you don't know, go ahead and start us off, Jay.
Yeah, you know, we keep it a cult classic here. Jay Unfair Sports. Just search for me on YouTube as well as whoever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me too. It's nice to be back on the show with you there. Hey, Chris, nice to be back on the show there with you. You know, it's me, Jason, Hall of Fame College Football, and the Sooner Magic Pod as well. Got a new one out there talking a little bit this morning about who knew that LSU doesn't buy players. I had no idea. Go figure.
Well, with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for coming on here and doing the show with me. As always, like, subscribe, do all those things, share everybody's channels, do all that, get the word out. Everybody is growing no matter what the number is. Everybody is growing. Everybody's doing their thing. And we're wrapping up for the season. Now, we're a little bit different than Orange Bloods. We like to take our shots when we actually prove it on the field. But tonight, we're going to talk about a list of things that are going on, a bunch of OU news, but I think we should probably start right here. So if you haven't already heard, Mr. Lole, Jermaine Lole, who was verbally committed to OU for the past couple of weeks before Dominique Williams committed here. He has flipped to Texas. He's flipped his commitment to Texas. Now, obviously, Texas, LSU, OU. I don't know if I put OU in that category, but I will say all three teams were looking, were searching, and I think all three teams are kind of on different levels of whether it just being a need, being a opportunity, or being a true, real necessity, desperate necessity, right? So with that being said, Jay, I want to pass it off to you and just kind of, if you would, just kind of explain to people, how did this happen? Because I'm sure everybody's out there thinking, like, I thought he was committed to OU and that was done deal.
So a rumor floating around is right after the Dominic Williams commitment, the competition decided to pick up the phone and see how Lole felt about it, right? Which I thought was interesting because, you know, Lole, you know, him and Dominic exchanged follows on social media, hung out during spring game. I mean, there's pictures of them standing next to each other. So I'm assuming they, you know, probably talk strategy with both, let them know kind of how they want to leverage both of them, all of that. And then, you know, sounds like after the commitment, you know, the phone started ringing. He decided to pull up. I think one of the On3 guys for Texas reported he was on campus this past weekend, which if that's the case, then that senses that Oklahoma probably would have potentially pulled the Scully. Probably didn't. But he went there and then decided to go ahead and go. Now, it looks like for him, this is honestly a better opportunity for him because he'll actually play a lot there because they really don't have anybody. I mean, they just picked up Bill Norton, who came from Arizona, which is a former player of their was that linebacker coach he just got from Arizona. So to me, it sounds like they just, you know, needed somebody to be able to start, and playing time was a bigger factor for him than being here in Oklahoma. So I wish him well.
Yeah, and that's what my initial thoughts about it were. I was like, hey, look, it's a better opportunity to actually be out there on the field consistently. Obviously, we're going to get into some of those things later, but you lose Sweat, you lose Murphy, you see where those guys go in the draft. That's going to be a big ask to replace those guys. And you're to the point now where, you know, hey, on paper, it looks great that you're, you know, possibly in the I guess in the you're in the queue to basically, you know, host the Oregon D lineman that's going that has been making the rounds or whatnot. But I think he's been in the He's been in the transfer portal since like January or so, right? But the thing is that now you're getting that guy, but still, I don't think there's a lot of production there. That's just my opinion. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong. However, yeah, I just thought it was a better opportunity for him to get out there on the field. But I will say,
he got a bigger bag. Let's not get it twisted. They paid him.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know.
To be honest,
I think it's playing time because I think with Dominique Williams coming here, that obviously overshadowed his commitment. Second
100%.
off, with guys like Stoney, Jaden Jackson, I think you're going to see Grayson Halton. Obviously, you might see Champ Sanders out there too. So I think you're going to see a plethora of guys in a heavy rotation, but I think that at some point they're going to circle that wagon, obviously. And I think Stoney and all of them, you have to play some of your freshmen next year because you're without a lot of these guys that following year. You're going to have so much talent. The problem is you need to make sure you're coming in their production, but it's going to be the same thing. You know, they're going to crap on us anyways. But Jason, with you bringing that up, I'll go to you next and just get your thoughts on this flip.
I mean, I don't blame him, and from what we're hearing from Stoya and some of these other guys, there was more money there. That's how they were able to restart the conversation, kind of put out some dissension there that, hey, they're all in on Dominic. You're kind of the secondary piece. You're going to get probably 200 snaps at Oklahoma. You get 400. I think you said this on your show earlier, Jay. You get 400 if you go to Texas because they got to have you. Here's the thing. I'm not sure that this guy gets 400 snaps no matter where he's at because the dude hasn't been healthy one season. That's the one thing about him. I think he's a good player. I think I liked his what I saw of him on film. I think he does pretty well fighting with his hands. And he's got that in him. But guys, he hasn't been able to stay on the field the entire season, except for I think just last season. That's it. Aside from that, he stayed injured at Arizona State. He was injured his first season at Louisville too. I don't know that you're gonna. Is that who you're depending on? Because I got to say, the other thing that I think is probably underspoken about is Bo Davis is at LSU now. Not only did you lose Sweat and Murphy, you lost their coach. He may not be the greatest recruiter, but we know he can coach them up. So to me, and maybe their replacement is good. We don't know that yet. And they just don't have the depth pieces. What I feel like as far as OU's concerned, I think that Lole was probably in a better position here because he wasn't going to have to be all world to stand out. I think he could have come in, and be fresh and have opportunities to make plays where, maybe you put a little something on tape a little bit more than maybe you would have at Texas. Look, I think I'm not saying it was a bad move for the kid. I don't have any ill will towards him. I don't blame him. If there was more money and more playing time and you feel like that's the position for you to go and do that, apparently USC was doing the same thing. They were trying to get him to go out there too. He's another Southern California kid. It doesn't surprise me. In the end, I don't really think it changes this defensive line. I think that, yes, you probably need to get your freshmen to step up. You needed that anyway. Yeah, as you just said, you needed those guys to get snaps. Those, at the very least, Stoney and Jaden Jackson are going to have to play some. And I've been saying this. I said it on my stream this morning. Do not count out Nigel Smith by the time this summer's over in the fall camp.
No, I don't think you're counting out anybody. But a couple of things I want to address. Let's go to the comments real quick. Hank says life will go on at OU. Ankh says I'm not mad about it. Take the money and he will have more PT. That's understandable.
True.
Topher said Stoya said playing time and more NIL was the deal with Texas getting Lole, which I think if you pick up on the context clues, I think that's definitely a thing. Let's see. Jaden Jackson will be a problem for those SEC offenses. That has yet to be seen, but I think we all believe that. Last thing I'll address, Jason, I don't know what that is playing behind you, but I saw men's shirts or something. Are you repping merch? Are you What you pushing out there, man?
That's our golf gear, bro. It's
Oh
nice.
man, I had
Check it out.
I had to get on you about that, but no.
Chop it up there for me. I'll just let everybody know, man. Make sure you get over to mailreg.com/JW_HOF.
This guy.
Thank you, Kchris.
Anyways. So Jay, what is the pivot? Because obviously you've heard about guys like Chris Hardy. We've heard about some other D tackles out there that obviously OU has ties to Hardy simply because of Zach Allen coming from Jacksonville State. So he's still out there. Are you trying to get him as a PWO? Are you trying to get, what is the pivot? What are you hearing?
Yeah, you're not getting Hardy as a PWO. There's too many other schools actually trying to offer up an actual opportunity to play at scholarship. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that Hardy ain't going to even consider. I mean, I think he'd consider, but I don't think there's a chance that we land him. But I if anything, honestly, I think Oklahoma has a few options. I mean, you've got JVR Suggs, the D2 guy that's also visiting down at LSU. I think he just dropped his top 4. Of course, we initially weren't on there because we really weren't in contact. We may circle the wagon on him and see if he has interest with us. And there's probably a couple of other defensive linemen out there we may go after. We may have to go after, Stephen F. Austin, defensive lineman, Brandon Lane. You may actually go after Gavin Meyer, the Wyoming defensive tackle, right? That's in the portal. So I don't think we're done. It makes sense for us to still want to get somebody, because if I'm correct, Brandon Lane decommitted from was it Michigan State recently. He committed and then decommitted. 6'3", 300-pounder. So of course there's a chance.
That's the story we were talking about a little while ago.
There's a chance we're gonna entertain, because if anything, and this I think Sooner fans need to understand, we're not doing this because we feel like we're in desperation mode in this situation, right? I think Dominic actually answers that desperation portion of needing a dude over 310 to go along with Dejon Terry. I think we're fine there. I think what we're looking at is we're going into the SEC. If we're going to make a deep run, that's 15, 16, 17 games potentially, you got to have the bodies to be able to hold up to that. So you're going to need that additional depth. Even with the young players, you may start going through all of them, and it helps with allowing them to develop, right? You're not forcing them into the game and them trying to figure things out on the fly. They can actually read, respond, and understand better than just playing, just being forced to play at a high level immediately, right? So you add that extra body, and it's good, body to have as you try to make a deep run in the SEC. So to me, we'll probably pick up one, but I don't think we'll be in a rush. I think Lole was a really good rotational guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't starting. It was going to be Terry and Dominic to start. Lole was going to rotate with Grayson Halton most likely as your second unit. Then you bring in Jaden Jackson and Stoney. You mix in some Ashton Champ Sanders, Devon Sears. I mean, you've got enough dudes that you can rotate through, but it's the SEC. You're still going to need bodies. And so I expect one more potentially, but don't be surprised if we don't even go for nobody and just roll what we got.
Yeah. Now, as Stephen G said, he said could always do what I guess what Caden Wooler's dad said, which is put 15 pounds on him and bump him inside. But no, I wouldn't even do that, because if you're going to do that, do it with the person that we've heard about this entire leading up to the spring game, Ethan Downs. Simple as that. We've been begging for it. At least me and Jason.
For the last couple of years, we've been talking about that.
We've been begging for it. I think that. I mean, I don't know. I think that if you're going to do the whole Lealu thing, I think you do it with Ethan Downs opposed to Caden Woolard. You went out there and got him for a reason. Unk says, "Hey, let's call one of those." MSU D tackles that committed to Oregon and Miami. You could. Is there
maybe Bear Alexander?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, stop what you're doing right now. Go ahead and like, subscribe on everybody's channel that's sharing and all the rest of that stuff. Do that for sure. So I guess what I'm getting from you two, the consensus is that, hey, good flip for Texas. Credit to them, but we will survive. Is that the vibe that I'm getting from you guys?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll be all right. We'll be fine. We,
All right.
we just need one more body if we need one more body, but at the same time, just as Jason mentioned, I've talked about ad nauseum, it ain't that big of a deal.
All right.
Agreed.
So moving on, I really want to get into it now, coming off the heels of that. Especially, we talked a little bit about Texas, but I guess the question is, and we don't have to necessarily focus on them. Okay, we already have our preconceived notions, our thoughts, all the rest of that. Let's focus on us. But I am going to ask the question openly: why does Texas get such a pass going into the SEC and OU doesn't? Jason, I'll start with you.
Getting a pass by saying getting a pass. So, yeah, we've been talking about this a lot. I think Jay said this really well the other day. He was talking about when you have this many guys go to the draft as they did, their best 11 players essentially are gone. And most of them were pretty early round picks. But their defensive tackles, we just got done talking about defensive line. Not only did they lose Murphy and Sweat, but they lost Bo Davis, and then they lost their number one linebacker. They lost their top 5 pass catchers and their top running back. And all of a sudden, we're just supposed to believe that they're going to flip the switch with a guy that, I mean, look, Quinn has not – it basically took him a year to get used to his receivers at Texas when he had Xavier Worthy and you know, then, of course, last year, A.D. Mitchell was a big deal for them. Jatavion Sanders, Whittington. You're going to tell me that all these guys that are coming in, and look, I like Isaiah Bond, and I actually think that Amari Niblack's really good too. I don't think that either one of those guys is better than Xavier Worthy or Jatavion Sanders. I don't see
it. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
I don't. A.D. Mitchell was their big play guy that when you needed a play, you could throw the ball up. He's going to go get it. Xavier Worthy was their speed guy, and I know that I get it. Bond has got that kind of breakaway speed and stuff like that, but if you go back and watch some of those games, he didn't show up all year long. He wasn't always that guy. I think there's potential there, but I think a lot of things have to happen for them to come close to the season that they had last year, even though they got the SEC schedule with training wheels.
Jay, what's your thoughts about it?
I think it's funny. I mean, as Jason made mention, right? He kind of wrote down some of the stuff that's missing on this team. When I kind of had some questions about it, you know, I dropped some stats on you know the X Bird and
go ahead
and immediately and guess who jumped all over me, right? It was Texas fans, right? They immediately ran to it and was saying, oh, well, you know, we're bringing in, you know, look at what A.D. Mitchell did. A.D. Mitchell kind of proves that blah, 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 blah. And I laughed at that because when you look at the numbers there, right? Yes, A.D. Mitchell was a great addition to what Texas was doing, right? Like Jason mentioned, he was the dude that when they needed something, he was giving it to him, right? But the one thing that's forgotten is I'm going to pull up this tweet with all my stats and stuff that I put together. Got to scroll back just a smidget because I did this a while ago. But the fact that we're saying this about A.D. Mitchell, right? It's the let me go ahead and pull this up for y'all real quick and share. Let me go ahead and share this screen real quick. See, as long as it lets me. All right. Put that up there for you, Chris. Them numbers, right? So we talked about, like I said, A.D. Mitchell coming in, cool. But A.D. Mitchell was also coming into a room with a bunch of players that are already established with Quinn Ewers, right? A.D. was just an additional piece to a room of guys that already existed.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to Andrew Anthony coming in last season for Dylan Gabriel. We already had Farouk in place. Nick Anderson, Jay Gibbs, who are already in place. Drake Stoops had already been there for a while. You bring in Andrew Anthony, and he basically emerges as one of your top receivers because he had teammates to learn from to figure things out. He just went out there and did his thing.
Yeah.
Gets hurt, but then you saw the emergence of Nick Anderson. And so I decided to go ahead and put together the numbers, right? They're bringing in 3 transfers, and they have one dude that has caught game receptions as a wide receiver last season, Jonte Cook. He had 8 last season. The only dude left Everybody else is gone. You're bringing in a whole bunch of transfers. What makes you think they're going to immediately be like that impactful day one as 3 transfers, right? If you were bringing in 1, we're bringing in Deion Burks. Like last year, they brought in A.D. Mitchell. I knew that A.D. Mitchell was going to be good for them because you brought in one dude, and all he's doing is supplementing what you've already been doing. Look at the numbers we brought in. We're bringing back from last season. We're bringing back 3,100 yards from last season. You take out Deion Burks, we're bringing in what? What's that? 2,500 yards, whereas Texas is bringing back 136.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there, right? And so, got into it with a few folks, but at the same time, look at it. Nick Anderson had his breakout year, so we know what he is. He's a dude. When Jalil Farouk is on, he's on. Got you 600 and something yards. Andrew Anthony should be back healthy. He'll be going. And we saw Jaden Gibson was starting to break out as the season was going on and in the spring game. So we know our room's going to be tight.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny that
you were down the stretch, I thought.
Right. And it's funny to me that this is what everybody's basing it on, guys that are transferring in. We've got to see them do something first. We've got to see if the chemistry's there. Quinn's not going to just stand back and just launch it in the air nonstop. Now, the one thing I will give to Texas that helps their case in all these conversations is they're bringing back most of their offensive line and their starting quarterback. Continuity is always a plus.
And they're
never will argue that.
And their running backs are going to be pretty good too. I like the Blue kid. I do.
Yeah, I like Blue. I like Blue as well. They're young.
Now, I want now, and look, and Texas fans, please, when you get on here, trust me, I could talk for days about our running back room, some of the mental gymnastics that we go through each week, right? Especially last season. But what I'm saying is this simply this right here. This is my one critique on Blue. I want to see him be able to, and I think we will this year. I think we will see that, but I want to see him be able to do more. Obviously, I want him to hit the hole, do things like that, but I want to see him. I don't know. I just want to see him do a little bit more. I think on their roster, I think obviously upside, Baxter has the higher upside, but I think if you're talking about what's the closest to the two not only Bijan, but what was the other running back that they had too?
Roshan.
I think Blue is pretty much, he kind of comes from that fabric. He's built like that, right? So I think that he can be the closest to get to one of those two, to at least emulate what they were able to do, right? And so you saw that kind of, he was kind of the energy guy. Let's see if he could do it over the season. But I think that those two running backs are going to be pretty good for them. So I see that happening. But we all know it's going to be more. It's going to take more. And I think that one of the things that I'm scared of this season that I laughed about, I joked about, I teased Texas about, really is the Arch Manning, frenzy. Is that mob going to take over if at any time they have one or two losses that they maybe shouldn't have, right? But we talked about the offense, but I think defensive side of the ball, I mean, come on, man. Like you lose the heart and soul of your defense right there, smack dab in the middle. Your secondary was not good last year. How, I don't know, especially with all of that length, that athleticism, and plus you guys played with a 10-yard cushion. It wasn't like you guys were pressing every game. And when you did press, you would show press, but watch the snap count and then at least give them a 5-yard cushion so you can and still get beat. So I really don't know what's going on. Nick and all of them, and I think Nick would tell you, like, hey, after the Brooks transfer was very alarming. That was very alarming simply because we really don't know what's going on. I know they want to get bigger. They want to get athletic. That was the word from Sark going into this spring half, the winter and the spring half of the of the off season, basically saying, hey, we want to do the X, Y, and Z and get better at that position. Don't get me wrong, they got Malik Muhammad, they got the kid from Clemson that's going to be at safety or whatever, but still, like, you want to put you want to put something out there on the field that everybody's going to be like, yeah, no, they had these woes last year, they should be better. But hell, you're basically bringing in new guys all over that defense, so it's going to be more plug and play. I don't know, and I think the further that you get away from Gary Patterson, I don't know, because PK, we've seen him with him, we've seen him without him. So that's all I got to say. But I think bringing the focus to OU is just amazing. That I think maybe the big factor or the big difference may be schedule. But I think I've talked to both of you guys, and I've talked to a lot of people as well. Looking at that schedule that we have,
landmines.
It could end up being the toughest schedule in the country. It could end up being a big dud as well. Because some of those
it could easily end up being one of the middle to weaker schedules also.
Yes.
People are not realizing that not all these teams are going to be able to replicate 10 wins like they did last year.
Yeah.
And we really believe in Mizzou. We really believe in Mizzou. Come on.
Well, we talked about this.
Lightning in a bottle, baby.
We talked about this ad nauseum a year and a half ago, all three of us on our different shows, on this show, everywhere that we all met up, we all said the same thing. There are a bunch of teams who are establishing new regimes going into this new SEC. Okay. You're looking at Auburn. You're like, hey, I think Auburn was on to something last year, but now do they have the players? I think they're still a year away, but they're going to be a tough out for a lot of people this year. Let's just be real. Everybody, I mean, regardless of what you have to say about his off the field stuff, Hugh Freeze is a good coach.
But is Peyton Thorne a good quarterback?
That's the question. Then you could ask the same thing. You could say, hey, look, I know Nico is a 5-star. I think he has a high upside, but are they going to be any better than what they were like? I mean, there's a lot of questions about a lot of teams out there, and I think that you're going to see that. There's going to be a lot of really good teams in the SEC. Most of them are going to be to the point where they could potentially be playoff teams. And I think what it's really going to come down to is we're going to do away with the numbers, and it's just going to mostly be eye test for a lot of teams, especially those teams that are fringe playoff contenders, being 9-3 or something like that. But no, I mean, I would love to hear from you guys as well. Jay, I'll go back to you. What is it? And I know we talked about Texas enough, but what is it about OU that turns, I guess, a lot of the national media off? Like, what is it?
About Texas, it's because
about OU.
About OU, it turned because our one weakness, and we all know this is a weakness of ours, is offensive line. And when you're bringing in a new quarterback, having a weak offensive line is questionable. Right. We answered the defensive line question. We got Dominic. We added to that. We're good. We had Caden Woolard, which his pops Jay even mentioned on the Bird app that. You can throw about 10, 15 pounds on him and move him to the middle, in which I honestly think he could be a solid 3 technique. That's just me, but that's not what we need. We need fatties, right? We need some big boys right in the middle, which I think we'll have that with Sears as well as Jaden Jackson getting over 300. We just need more 300-pounders, right? But that's the thing that scares them. You got a young rookie quarterback, basically. He'll be a sophomore, true sophomore. And he only played one start, and then one start had a lot of turnovers. Granted, if I say he would finish the game with 2 turnovers if the 2 fumbles didn't happen. I don't think there would be any forcing at that point. The 3rd interception wouldn't have happened. But that's kind of where everybody has their fear. Like, we're wondering if he's going to be any good. But the fact that he put up almost 400 yards and honestly could have won that game. He was fine.
Till that last fumble that got returned, they were winning. I mean, he had those first 2 interceptions and a fumble, and they were winning.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it was the luck of the draw that Farouk fumbled the ball twice. If that doesn't happen, that's a win easily for Oklahoma. It fell apart after the second one.
It's a bowl game, though. It's a bowl game. It's a bowl game.
It's a practice, right? It's a sanctioned practice, basically. A sanctioned scrimmage is what it really is. But it was a good key into seeing what it is. So if you're asking the question, what is it about Oklahoma that scares everybody? That's it. Offensive quarterback. They're trying to figure out if that's there. Now, the good thing is our offensive line coach is Bill Beatonbow, who's put a lot of people in the NFL, and he's done a really good job with doing makeshift offensive lines. We're bringing in Branson Hickman, which is a key component. If we didn't lose Troy Everett, adding Hickman would have probably gotten rid of everybody's concerns on the offensive line. Let's just put it that way. Now we just got Hickman in the middle. We'll be able to slide Bates to a guard, Ozeta, as well as Fabichi Wewu, and then your tackles going to be probably both the Jakes, or you're going to throw Tarkin on one of them. Right now, the bigger thing is that we just got to go out there and prove it, like always. Next season, everybody's going to be talking about Oklahoma because we'll bring back the most production of anybody.
Well, yeah, and I think that also, I mean, you hear a lot of stuff about Jackson Arnold. He's a new quarterback. Is he going to be able to handle the rigors of the SEC and not make a bunch of mistakes? I kind of go back to what we were talking about on my show this morning, and I think Sean's hitting it on the head here. All the flaws are always going to be out there, but what I would say is that what we saw from Jackson in the spring game, with a lot of pressure on him, his pocket presence was different. He didn't force throws into positions that were going to turn into interceptions. He threw the ball away. You know, he still hit the one. I only really felt like one throw, that first throw to Jaden, the very first play of the game, was the only one that didn't look great. And it, you know, I think he was a little off timing there. It wasn't great. The rest of them were really good. And really, even he probably could have still hit that. You know, they still could have hit that pass. It's a spring game, but he saw probably more pressure on in that game than he saw. Well, for sure against Arizona. Arizona wasn't putting a ton of pressure on him. He was late a lot. His timing was not there, which is not that big of a surprise for a freshman. You know, a true freshman making his first start in a bowl game. Look,
it's a good team too.
And they were a good team. I'm not saying anything bad about Arizona. I'm just saying.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, like as you're pointing out, the mistakes he's made, he went up against a good team. Actually, Arizona was. Look, I've been following Arizona all season. I've been pointing out, dog, Arizona might be actually really good.
They're really good. They were really good. They've got a good coach. They had a good. I mean, look, in the end, he was still winning that game. And as Stephen G was saying, had that fumble not happened, they were going to go up by 18 at that point. It turns into a tie game instead.
It's true.
You know,
and to add to that, even too, kind of as you're pointing out with that portion of it, the other thing to really think about too, with Oklahoma and the, I guess you could say the quote unquote hate is, our coach is going into his third year, right? He couldn't keep the well-oiled machine going when he first got there, but he also ripped it down to the studs. After he was able to get majority of the guys that he wanted on his team, what happened? 10-3 season, which was solid. Losses that shouldn't have happened, we know who we're blaming for it. I'm not even going to, reopen up those scabs. But guess what?
Don't have to do all that, yeah.
Going into next season in the SEC, hey, man, yeah, the SEC's tough. Only team really there is Georgia, right? Bama ain't the same Bama. They've lost players to the portal. Now, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is a bad coach. I think that he does a very good job, especially if he's walking into a team that's recruited well with a lot of older players. He's walking into a very good situation. So he's going to be able to make the most of that. I don't see it being 10 wins this year, but I do see him doing a very good job his first year there. Georgia's still going to be the king, and we'll have multiple questions with Texas. We'll see what they look like their first 4 weeks.
Yeah. No, just to kind of wrap this one up, I it's fine. Look, a pissed off OU is the best OU, to be honest with you. I'd rather go in the season with a little bit of hate, people looking down on us and all the rest of that. It is not going to be a shocker when we're beating teams, to be honest with you, because we're built for success. We just have some questions, but I think in hindsight now, looking at the spring game, I think the overall OU collective is simply, hey, we're injured at the offensive line. We're working guys in. We have a lot of talent there. That's going to be fine. We'll figure that out. And I think the consensus is that we think that we have one of the better quarterback rooms in the nation that nobody's really talking about. Not only because of Jackson Norman, but because of Michael Hawkins as well. And then, I mean, obviously you got a veteran in there with Casey Thompson who is going to be more vital. I mean, who's going to be really important to that room for a lot of different reasons. So that being said, let me go ahead and share the screen one more time. Got one more thing for us to look at. Let's see. Yeah, that's it right there. So this is something that I'm trying to figure out. I think it's on 3, obviously. If you guys like, I don't know if you guys in the chat like on 3, like 247, like rivals. I don't know who you guys like, but I saw this one and I just kind of laughed. I said, "Okay, cool. I get it. I see some teams on there, but I'm scratching my head." I've seen us at 3 at different places, still behind Texas. I've seen us now at 9. So obviously, I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, I know Colorado has basically went to the portal and you know, they've gotten some really good wide receivers, but I'm still like, hey, I don't know. Georgia, scratching my head. Miami, scratching my head. And I know Georgia has really good wide receivers, but I mean, let's be real.
They're not as good as Oklahoma's.
Yeah, it was Lad McConkey and and Brock Bowers last year. That was their show. Then occasionally he would throw to somebody else, but if those two were open, 90% of the time he was throwing it to them. Ole Miss has a good room. I can't argue with that. Oregon has a good room. Ohio State, I mean, obviously those two teams. Texas has a good wide receiver room, but
better than OU.
As we just saw with those numbers and all the rest of that stuff that you put up there, Jay, I'll go back to you again.
Thank you.
What is your thoughts about this?
So, the numbers I pulled out was specifically because, so 0-3 drops this, puts us number 9, which is, of course, absurd. I'm about to run the numbers this evening during the Thunder game on what everybody is returning, and I promise you it's not going to be as pretty as everybody's thinking, but I digress on that. Yeah, I got to give it to Orange Bloods, man. They actually had us 3rd. Right? Our rival had us 3rd in the country in their top 8 because they recognize not only have they seen our wide receivers cook they butt, but they also recognize that we're returning all but one dude. Like Drake Stoops is literally the only person we're not returning from last season. And Drake had a lot of catches because he was the most tenured dude on the roster at the time.
He's a tough guy. He knew what routes to run. I love Drake and all, but he was.
But my point is, again, he was the most tenured dude on the team. So that plays a factor in college football. But I mean, looking at this, dog, like we literally are bringing back 3 of our top dudes. Plus, we brought in the top guy from Purdue, who's going to replace Drake and probably outperform him. Like you said, Drake was good.
And Texas was all over him too. They wanted him just as bad, and he chose Oklahoma.
Yes, and that's what I get at it. So I mean, I think Missouri's at a fair spot because Burden is really good himself, and Weiss has finally shown out. That's a fair one. I don't know about Ole Miss. Texas is way too high. They're all transfers. That's the thing that kills me. They're all transfers, and I'm not shitting on the transfers. My point is, they're transfers. We got to wait and see if they're going to adapt to the team. Hell, didn't they bring in Isaiah Namor? Didn't he end up transferring right back out?
He did.
So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think A.D. Mitchell was an example of a work, but Namor was another one that came in and did not.
They're gonna say the ACL, but when I listened to Nick talk about Namor, it was, hey man, he's out there doing things that you don't do on a bum ACL and all the rest of this stuff, getting ready for the season. Never saw.
Exactly.
And another thing is, and that's what obviously in one of our chats, Jay, you definitely know that I ask all the questions. I just ask questions constantly because I asked him, I was like, hey, with the running backs, are we going to see Blue? Or are we going to see Baxter? Are we going to see both? Right? Because Sark wants to play one. Then with the wide receivers, you already know, unless one of them needs a spell or unless one of them is hurt, he's running 3 wide receivers. What are we talking about? How are all these people going to get on the freaking field? So, Jason, and I'm making you go second because I want you to have the last word. Like, what are your thoughts about, this right here? Because I know you're going to eat it up. Go ahead.
It's trash. Complete trash. Oregon and Ohio State. Look, what's left in the Ohio State room? Well, I don't even look. They're good.
Hey, the Ohio State. Hey, Ibuka.
Hold on. Ibuka he has underachieved for the last 2 years, and the one guy that has been really good at Ohio State the last couple of years is no longer there. I'm telling you now, they were better. They were better before. I'm not even going to say that, but forget it. They could be fine. Fine. They want to get. That's just off of recency bias, is what that is. Oregon, okay. Texas, get the hell out of here. We just saw the stats. I don't want to hear anything else about it. Ole Miss, no, bro. No, in Mizzou, they've got 2 guys. They got 2 guys. What else do they got? They're talking about their receiver room. What else do they have? I don't get it. Georgia, look, as much as I respect Georgia, and you know that every player on the team has got talent, there's none of those, anybody that we're looking at all the way down to LSU is
LSU lost both their receivers. They lost both their 1,000-yard receivers.
LSU has a receiver factory down there though too, and so I think that LSU is going to be really good, but we don't know who it is yet. We don't know who it is yet, right? We don't. So, I mean, do you give them the benefit of the doubt? Again, it's another recency bias thing, like Ohio State, like Oregon. In the end, Oklahoma has the best wide receiver unit in the country, period. There's not a better one in the country. It sure as hell isn't Mizzou or Miami. And Texas, you got to be kidding me, man. You got to be kidding me. I just don't understand it. And what is this Colorado thing? Who are we talking about?
Now, Colorado's wide receiver room was good. With Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., as well as Amarion Miller.
Omarion Miller.
They actually got a good receiver.
They
actually got a good receiver.
Hey, and they went out there and they got like a guy or 2 in the portal that you're like, hey.
Yeah, they got what was it? LeJontay, like a Will Shepard from Vandy.
Yes,
who had
that's the kid.
Like 600 or 700 yards receiving last year. He was actually kind of solid.
And people don't know, like, he's a guy that has first round grade on him, to be honest with you, with all the physical intangibles. Jason, you think I'm playing? Look,
he's 6'3", 200 pounds.
I'm not even hating on CU, guys. I'm not hating on CU. I'm one of the guys that talks up CU. So
you're right.
Will Shepard is
bugging me.
Will Shepard's good.
If we're talking about that, you guys are talking about Colorado like they should be in that top 3, and we got Texas in the top 3.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's your problem, right?
Ridiculous to me. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
then even with that, to add to that real quick,
brand has finally returned. Your brand.
Like with that, LeJontay Wester is the other wide receiver that Colorado picked up. He had 108 catches for 1,100 yards last season. They've got to me, they're a little underrated there too, in a shocking manner. I mean, Shadur's still a pretty solid quarterback as long as he's not getting sacked 60 times.
Yeah.
But he gets the ball out to those receivers enough.
Shadur's numbers were right. Listen, if they keep him upright, the only quarterback
he might go for 5,000.
The Big 12 that's better than Shadur, and it's only if he's healthy, would be Jalen Daniels.
I'll debate between him and Fafita. I think Noah Fafita may be up there with them.
I don't know if he's there yet, man.
College-wise, I don't think pro-wise, no, but I think college-wise, I think Fafita may be up there, especially with him and T-Mac. That's a lethal 1-2 punch. But I agree with you. If Shadur stays upright, dog, he's got 5 wide receivers. Easily, that could do something.
Guys, look, this will be the last word on this.
Oh, Sean says he's gonna soundbite. He's gonna copyright you, Jason, because he's using a soundbite.
Hey, this is Chris's show. That's not my problem.
Wow!
You sharing it?
Got him.
You're sharing it. Don't worry about it. Look, Jesse Simonton, you're doing a great job. You had on 3. You made it that far. That's great. All right. One thing I said to one of my old friends, Seth Oliveris, you guys may know that name may ring a bell. I told him one day when he was still writing for OU blogs and everything and stuff like that, he was like, man, it's the summertime. It's kind of bare. I said, hey, man, no, it's not. Bro, you got to use some imagination. He said, well, what would you write? I said, I'd be doing top 10 list everything. Top 10 OU games of all time. Top 10 wide receiver units. That don't make
always
any
content,
sense.
baby.
It's always content, buddy. So everybody's got an opinion. They're just not always valid. Okay. So
that's right.
You mean like Ketchum's?
Yeah. I just, for me, just to be real with you, it's a list. It's cool. I know what we have. If things are clicking for that offensive line and your run game is solid in pass protection as well, I mean pass blocking, and then also if your run game is efficient on the ground too, you're going to make life a living hell for defenses simply because you can't bracket guys, you can't double team guys, you can't pay too much attention to one guy. Go back. You guys know how I am whenever I talk about games. Go back to the West Virginia game, right? Perfect play calling across the board in that game. Why? Because we were aggressive. We weren't east-west. We were north-south. You saw guys open. They ran the same damn plays a bunch of times. You saw guys just running down the field wide open, a la Nick Anderson, right? Go back to the TCU game. What did we do? We got vertical. We went north and south. That's what you're going to see consistently from Seth Luttrell and Joe John. They're not about to sit out here and just play and try to lull you to sleep. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to take shots when they want to take shots, but they're going to be aggressive because they have the wide receiver room, and you're not going to be able to go out there, and they vary at size too. Because at one point, you're going to see Deion Burks on the outside. The other side, you may see Andre Anthony. Hell, you may see Brennan Thompson. You may see Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson be your outside guys. You may see Farouk and Deion Burks be your inside guys, opposite of each other. So I mean, you got to think about that.
There's guys that may not play that if they did, they would be unbelievable.
I mean, come on, let's be real. Kearney to Carry On, who I think people are becoming more and more of a big fan of. No, I mean it's just opinions, man. It's just opinions, and that's what's been going around.
Like everything else, so OU's getting underappreciated, slander, whatever you want to call it. There's no love coming to Oklahoma, and that's fine. They should have a big ass chip on their shoulder when they show up for the season. Period. And everywhere.
All right. Well, with that being said, we've been on here for 46 minutes. Don't want to keep us too long. I know some people got to go watch the Thunder. My Lakers are out, so I'm going to let y'all do what y'all need to do. Jason, I'll let you go first this time. Go ahead. Your final thoughts. And then also go ahead and promote your show, bro.
Hall of Fame College Football, Jason the coach, and the Sooner Magic podcast. Both channels are right here on YouTube as well. Get over there and check us out, man. We're ramping it up, man. Lots of stuff to do. Excited to thanks for having me on again, man. It was fun to chop it up with you guys.
Yeah, Jay? another good one, man. You can find me, Jay Unfair Sports, here on YouTube, as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Man, that's a last final thoughts is, man, just it's okay. We'll be fine. We didn't lose anybody of importance. I promise you.
The Titanic is not shit sinking, bro.
We're not on the Titanic. That's Texas. That's Texas.
I mean, and
they hit an iceberg and they don't even know it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if we really do believe in the development and the evaluations and all the rest of that stuff, like we say we do, I think we'll be just fine. So with that being said, there's nothing else, guys. We are. Hold on 1 second. We out of here.
You know.